Shamika. I'm back. And for those of you guys who don't know who I am, because I haven't introduced myself, in 2023, my name is Shamika Jones, and I'm the founder and creator of the NOSA Group. If you get an opportunity to jump on this live or catch us in hashtag replay, definitely let us know where you're from, share your social media. I always like to follow fellow NOSAs in the community. So for sure, make sure that you're sharing your information with us so that we know where you are, where you're located. So today is Talk About It Tuesday, and Tuesday came really fast. And I wanted to talk about a hot topic that actually just came into my email inbox today that may impact quite a few NOSAs. So I'm sharing the article here in the comments so that you have a reference point. Um, because a reference is always a good resource. And today's hot topic state is actually about the state of New York. So I know we have quite a few NOSAs that are staffing in the New York area, as well as some people who are interested in it. So I thought this information would be quite useful. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it is because sometimes people forget, like when it starts, much like we saw last year this time when it came to staffing regulations. So when something starts in one state, there's a strong, high likelihood that it'll branch over to neighboring states or really across the country. So a little background, back in early 2022, probably first quarter, a lot of states were exploring the idea of incorporating additional mandates on healthcare staffing business. And for those of you who don't know, you can check out my other videos where I go a little bit more in depth. But healthcare staffing, the business of getting into healthcare staffing, is very, very different and a little bit less regulated than home care. So, of course, I share that's one of the reasons that I decided to do it. But in some states, there are special licensing requirements. You may need to have commercial space. You may need to complete an application. So there are some additional nuances. But for the most part, the entry process, meaning registering with your state, getting your insurance, more or less, is consistent from state to state. There isn't any special licensing with the exception of a handful of states: Massachusetts, California, I think Nevada, Illinois, and probably a few others. So part of that conversation was that there were quite a few states that hadn't really explored additional regulation, but during the pandemic and all the things that happened with the pandemic, a lot more states were looking to do that. So that included a lot of states in the Midwest: Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Oregon. So they were proposing bills at the state level that would mandate in a way that would create more requirements. And that requirements, just as like a general thought process, was that you may have to do like a specific application. You may have to have your insurance in place prior to opening up the agency, or specific insurance amounts. They also require some sort of yearly or quarterly reporting on your staffing levels, your staffing bill rates, and different things that just weren't in place before. So I'll go more into that. If you're interested in knowing more about that or helping with that, there is a post under features that already shares information for you guys if you're interested in joining our work group, where we'll kind of peel through some of that. But I'm not going to jump too far into that, and we're going to really just focus on this particular one, which is around the state of New York latest bill. And I don't think it's that new based on my research. And I'm going to share one other thing that might be a good resource. But it was something that I think many people weren't paying attention to. And maybe now they are. So essentially what it is that the state of New York, I believe it was 2021, has mandated that employees will receive a certain amount of sick leave depending on the size of their employer. And this is coming from newyork.gov, the link that I listed. So it's saying employers with 100 or more employees must provide up to 56 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. Employers with 5 to 99 employees must provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. Employers with 4 or fewer employees and a net income of greater than $1 million, which I mentioned in one of my TikToks, is not hard to get to. The actual amount in the previous tax year are required to provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. And then again, employers with 4 or fewer employees and a net income of less than $1 million in the previous tax year are required to provide up to 40 hours of unpaid sick leave. And the gist of that is, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in there, you meet one of the 4 qualifications. Most of us do, and you will be required to provide sick leave. So one of the questions, or the question that kind of came into me, was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you account for that? And it can be a little bit tricky, staffing, more or less, depending on the client in the truest sense, isn't something that typically offers like a complete package, especially when you're a smaller staffing firm. But for those in New York, that will no longer be an option. They are saying on the site that it's an accrual based on employees begin accruing leave based on September 30th, 2020. Leave must be accrued at a rate not less than 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. And then of course they have another alternative. I linked this post in this live so that those who are in New York can reference it. It seems pretty, easy to follow. They talk about eligibility, permitted use, existing policies. So this would definitely be something that you would have to include in your policies and procedures. It touches on a little bit about retaliation, record keeping, which is probably going to be a big to do. And it says employers must keep payroll records for 6 years, which must include the amount of sick leave accrued and used for each employee on a weekly basis. Upon request of an employee, employers are required to provide within 3 business days a summary of the amount of sick leave accrued. So, that definitely creates another task, I'll say, for us to do as NOSAs. And then of course they have a FAQ and fact sheet.